California. I was either the very end of high school or the very beginning of my first year in college. And I remember I was driving to Sacramento, and I only had an AM radio. I had a pretty pitiful car. And the only thing I could get was this station. And here's this guy that came on, and he talked about politics kind of like my family does. Like he was real. He wasn't William F. Buckley and all polished. Instead, he was funny, he was entertaining, and he was passionately conservative. And you didn't hear that on the radio. We're talking either late 87 or the beginning of 88. Sadly, I don't remember exactly when, but I remember thinking, wow, I was instantly a fan. I got to give him credit for making this possible, because if I hadn't spent so much time not realizing that I was learning from the best conservative talk show host that I believe there ever was. And we have a lot of people now that are good, but he's an inspiration. And so I just kind of wanted to say thank you, Rush Limbaugh. You're missed. You're still thought of. You're still respected. You changed the country. We've now got this thing called a podcast that isn't quite the same as radio. This show actually is both a podcast and radio. It's a combo. But you made that possible by opening the door, by being funny and innovative and interesting. Well, I don't know that I will ever do as well as Rush Limbaugh, but I'm certainly inspired to do my best. Today, as I was flipping through the news, I noticed how a whole bunch of the left talks about, well, Trump's going to be a dictator. Trump's a fascist. MAGA's, all of you, you're just fascists. Now, I'm thinking, well, but we believe in individual liberty. We don't see people by their tribe, by their skin color first. The left does. We're not all about growing the power of government. The left is. So I would say to all of those people that are saying Trump's a dictator, Trump's a fascist, all you MAGA people are fascist, maybe you should look in a mirror. Just a crazy idea. You know, I think we need to define fascism. So, in a fascist government, and if you go to Wikipedia, something like that, they're going to say, oh, it's the right. And then the example they use is Adolf Hitler. You know, the guy that was the head of the Democratic Socialist Party in Germany. So I don't think that right and left exactly applies properly here. So, in order to be a fascist state, and I would argue that in many ways we're moving towards one. It's just that instead of having a strong evil character in charge, we have a bumbling fool with a list of people telling him what to do and what to say. Meaning Joe Biden, though Gavin Newsom's doing his best to have his own little fascist cabal here in California. So, fascism requires a dictator. It requires forcible suppression of opposition. Well, mostly we're seeing censorship, but we're seeing the FBI sent after people. We saw the CDC talk to social media and say, oh no, you can't say that because that's not our agreed opinion. You know, I was censored on Facebook many times, but one of the big ones was I posted Great Britain's equivalent of the CDC. I posted fact pieces, data that they'd collected. Now, they did draw some conclusions, but because it didn't agree with the CDC, our own government's conclusions, Facebook censored my post. Well, Great Britain is not a third world country. They have a legitimate medical establishment. They came to some different conclusions. But I was kicked off and I was suspended on Facebook because of this. And largely that all happened because there was collusion between the FBI, Joe Brandon's administration, and big tech. And you can look at the Twitter files. There's lots of evidence that talks about that absolutely makes the connection that our government paid Twitter quite a lot of money. We have not actually looked into what happened with Facebook, but I want to point out that Mark Zuckerbucks, he's all in on the Democrats. He's all in because he's already made his money. See, that's the dirty little secret. If you already made all your money, you've got all your power, well, the Democrats will help protect that. They used to, maybe, sort of, be the party of the working class. I think that ship has sailed. They don't care. They're all about power, maintaining power. I think they've always been about power and maintaining power, but they used to at least pretend like they cared about the working class. Now, all of their policies are about putting you in your place, dumbing down society. And I don't want to just complain about the Democrats, but they've lost their mind. How do I not talk about this? So I didn't actually get to defining fascism. Sorry, folks. A little passionate on this particular issue. So you got a dictator, somebody in charge. You've got government that uses forcible suppression. You've got censorship. They see you and they focus on group rights, not individual rights. You know, like all the cultural Marxists that are in the Democratic Party. They see you first. You know, they got to pull out their little CTR way of figuring out whether you're a good person or a bad person. Then when they see your skin color, well, there's one strike or one bonus, depending on, that'll determine whether you're good or bad. But then they have this whole idea of intersectionality where you couldn't be a good person, say if you were African American, but you believed in conservative things. Well, you would go over and you'd be in the bad people by the color of your skin. They seem to think that they can tell who you are by the color of your skin, not by the content of your character, not by your ideas, your ideology, your worldview, but by what tribe. And the whole woke part of the culture, it exists right in this ridiculous place where we're part of a tribe. Well, if we said the tribe was America and we were American first, I don't know, like MAGA, I'd say that's a good way to be nationalist. Because then we're taking care of all of the people in this country first. That's not what they want to do. They've thrown open the borders. We've got sanctuary cities. By the way, the sanctuary cities have finally kind of had enough. You know, we would have currently Ukraine funding. Now, I'm not feeling so bad that we don't have this next group of Ukraine funding. I think it's $60 billion. If Biden had been willing to do some border enforcement, that was the deal that the Republicans wanted. The strange part is it actually probably would have helped Biden's poll numbers because closing the borders a much more popular idea than Joe Brandon. People don't like him because he's corrupt, he's doddering, he's too old, he's clueless. He shakes hands with people that aren't there. The Easter Bunny has to help him when he gets lost on the White House grounds during the Easter egg hunt. Doesn't know which way he's supposed to go. And their diversity, equity, and inclusion number 2 person, Kamala Harris, she's less popular than Joe. How could he possibly? You've got a racist, doddering old fool as a president, and you talk about for diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you somehow found somebody that is less popular than a racist, doddering old fool named Joe Brandon. What a crazy world. So the reason I don't believe that Trump is a dictator or a fascist is one of the first things he did immediately. He came into office and he started cutting regulation, meaning cutting the power of the government and throwing a whole lot of those things back to the states. The idea of federalism, the idea that not all power should exist with one mighty king, whether it's King Newsom here in California or it's King Biden. And Biden, I think he'd like to be a king if he understood even what one was, because he likes power and he definitely likes getting his 10% for the big guy. Anyway, next thing, so Trump starts off cutting regulations. Next thing he says, we need to cut taxes. We need to eliminate all of these games. And he cut a lot of the loopholes. A lot of the deductions went away as the trade-off for lower taxes. And almost immediately, this country saw prosperity. Yet they went, well, he's a dictator racist. He's a fascist. Well, they decided all that beforehand because they saw him as a threat to the existing power structure. They saw him as a threat to the deep state, essentially a threat to the fourth branch of government and a threat to all of those connections that have to do with crony capitalism. The cultural Marxists talk about how it's not fair here in capitalism. Well, it's particularly not fair when it's a rigged system where you're elected, you serve some time in Congress, you're bought off by capitalists, by major corporations, and then you go work for one of those major corporations, hint, hint, Nikki Haley, and you go from no money to millions of dollars ahead in just a couple years. Well, that's the system they've got set up. They've got a rigged system so that we maintain an elite. And the cultural Marxists say, well, we want to get rid of that. Really? Really? I don't actually believe you do, because every example of Marxism out there, there's a ruling elite. They talk about, oh yeah, you've got the proletariat and then you've got this. And there'll be a withering away. Except it never, ever happens because you're denying essential human nature. It is normal for somebody to want to take care of their own interest first, to then take care of their family's interest, their friend's interest first. Capitalism, essentially, along with this representative republic, we set up a system where instead of embracing fascism, we let the individual continually make choices, whether they're good choices or bad choices, continually make choices. Those choices, whether they're economic choices or freedom choices, each one of those, the business has to be right about what those people want to choose. So yeah, some people, occasionally through luck, but I think most of the time luck could be defined by how much effort you put in. And the harder you work, the luckier you tend to be. But if you make the right choices, you get rewarded. Communism completely just shares the misery and it takes out the reward. Fascism would do the same thing, and we need to be afraid, and because all of those people that are screaming fascism, they're the same people that are advocating for policies that lead towards fascism. We absolutely need to go out. In California, it's legal to ballot harvest. Do you have friends that you kind of question whether they're going to go vote? Go get their ballot. Take it down to the Register of Voters office. Or at least take it to a ballot box, but preferably a Register of Voters office. Don't mail it. Go get their ballot. Anybody that you believe is a America First patriot, that believes in this country, go get their ballot. Because there are a lot of people that have went, there's just too much nonsense. I don't have time. I just want to watch the game. You probably got people like that in your family. Go get their ballot. Offer them, tell you what, let's go to lunch. I'll buy you lunch if you'll fill out your ballot and let me take it down to the Register of Voters office. That's not illegal, as long as you can have a conversation with your family. As long as you don't fill it out yourself. Make sure they sign the back. Now, a lot of other states are in a little better place. They don't have this ridiculous idea of universal mail-in ballots. And that's the disease that Gavin Newsom wants to spread to the rest of the country. Now, an example of somebody that wants fascism, but says, oh, Trump's a fascist. Well, he was just kicked off of MSNBC. They're slightly better maybe than fake news CNN, but that's even questionable. Mehdi Hassan. Now, the reason he was having a fit was because people were talking about deporting terrorists, from particular countries that are advocating views that, things like, let's eliminate the Jews from the river to the sea, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. If you did that, there'd be no Israel. So you'd get rid of everybody there. And so we're talking about, well, we don't want violent extremists here in this country. Mehdi Hassan had a little fit about that. Amazingly, somehow, MSNBC fired him. Or at least long-term suspended him. Because I don't ever expect MSNBC to do the right thing. I expect them to come to the wrong conclusion. I expect them to regularly lie. I expect them to regularly cover for Gibber and Joe. I expect them to cover for anything that makes the Democrats look bad. That's kind of sad. Another example would be right back to MSNBC, Joy Reid. She will say you're a racist at the drop of a hat. You blink wrong, you're a racist. If you're of the wrong political persuasion. But she'll also tell you that enforcing existing immigration law, law that's already on the books, it's already been decided. She'll call you a fascist for that. And, since I'm white, I would obviously automatically also have to be a racist. We need to toughen up. Don't be afraid of somebody calling you racist. Are you really a racist? If you are, then you need to look at yourself. But if you're not, you need to tell that gibbering fool, in this case Joy Reid, that's BS. I need to be judged by the content of my character, by my ideas, and not by this petty little name calling. Playing the race card constantly, it isn't good for anybody. It doesn't help anybody. It actually hurts. It actually makes our country lesser when we're constantly focused on, I'm a victim or I'm an oppressor. And they've created this whole race industry where there's this white guilt and there's all of these people that, we need to make up for that. No, you need to go live your lives. You need to treat people well. And you try, just like Morgan Freeman talks about, we need to try to have a colorblind society. He gets pissed. He was asked about Black History Month, and he's like, I don't want a Black History Month. Morgan Freeman, he's pretty much on the left, but he's a based traditional liberal. He doesn't want a Black History Month because he sees Black history as simply part of history. And that it should obviously be integrated in talking about American history, but it's not separate from American history. It's fully intertwined, and we should embrace both the good and bad, because the good, kind of obvious, the bad, because we need to learn lessons. We started in some flawed ways, but our founding fathers put in this poison pill that would end slavery. It was called All Men Are Created Equal. It came within one vote of getting rid of slavery during our founding. It didn't quite happen. They decided that they could fix this later. Yeah, was that a horrible sin? Yeah, but we probably wouldn't be the country we were. By the way, we were the second country right after Great Britain to get rid of slavery. I'm not apologizing for it. I'm trying to understand what happened. We're going to go ahead on that note. We're going to take a break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. I want to say thank you to everybody that takes the time to listen. We've all got busy lives. It's a busy time of year. You've got Christmas parties. You've got gifts to find. You've got a million details. Life's busy. Sometimes it's hard. So if you are willing to take time out of your day to listen to what I have to say, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And Merry Christmas. Let's go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. We're also on 102.3 FM. And you can find this show and many of the other local shows on Rumble, on Facebook, on Truth Social, and on Twitter. Well, so where does this leave all of us? You know, we're in a crazy world. The left will say and do anything. They've lost their ever-loving minds. I believe that you have to change yourself. You know, we've got this kind of battle, and we're in a war. We're not in a shooting war at this point, but we're in a war. We're in an ideological war. On the one side, you've got people that they don't always believe in God, but they tend to, if you're patriotic. They tend to, if you favor individual rights. And on the other side, you've got the left that tends to favor group rights, wants to see you through group rights first, you know, like fascists do, like communists do. They tend to be race-based, not individual-based. Like the important thing about me is the color of my skin. No. The important thing about me is whether I'm honorable, whether I'm helpful and nice, whether I'm real and honest. Am I hardworking? Do I contribute to society or do I tear down society? What kind of person am I? That's what's important. And skin color has nothing to do with that. I get that we still have a legacy of suppression and racism in some places, in some people. But I would contend that it would not be near the problem that it is if it was not for the race hustlers. If Obama hadn't decided to talk about how he was a victim. Are you kidding me? The President of the United States talks about how he was a victim. The most powerful man in the world. And he was elected, duly elected twice. I don't see a victim there. I see an American success story. I hated his policies, but I see an American success story that we elected, as in Joe Biden's words, a clean, articulate black man. Now, those aren't my words. Those are Joe Biden's words. I want to make that clear. So we went from this guy that he was all about more government is what was needed always. And if it didn't work, it's because we needed more money and more government. And as kind of a counter to that, because the pendulum swung and we got Trump. Which kind of made sense. A guy that's all about group rights, groupthink, smooth talker. Obama's a very good talker. Not so great on ideas, but very good talker. He's much like Gavin Newsom. They could almost be the same guy, except Gavin has greasier hair. And then we swung back, whether you believe in the 2020 election or not, we swung back and we've got Gibbering Joe. And somehow, because the Democrats were so wedded to the idea that they must have power to grow government because government, oh goody, we need more government. We got Gibbering Joe. We got an old, doddering, I would say pathological liar, though I don't know that he's actually a pathological liar because I'm not sure he's got it together even enough for that. But, you know, he's ran for president multiple times, and one of the early times, he told absolute lies that were largely hidden and suppressed because I tried to post things on social media about just this. His plagiarizing a speech, him claiming that he was number one in his law class. Total BS. Claiming that he got a scholarship. BS. Claiming that, oh yeah, he went to the Puerto Rican church before he went to the Catholic church, after he went to the black church, all while he was a kid, while he marched in the civil rights movement, which there's zero evidence of, because Joe will just make stuff up off the top of his head. So then they chose an absolute fool because they cared more about power than all of these things they talk about that they claim they believe. No, what they really want is to tear down the walls, the firewalls of our society that protect us. So, some good examples of that. How did Trump behave during COVID? He tried to insulate us from China, and he was called a racist for it. Clearly, he had better information than we did, and he called it the China virus. I don't have a problem with that. Came from Wuhan, China. And seems to have come from a lab. He tried to make doctors have as much choice as possible, meaning they could use ivermectin, which, by the way, they just said it's perfectly okay, but I couldn't post about ivermectin on any of the social medias. But they just said it's perfectly fine and it's okay to use for COVID. So somebody was lying there, Fauci. Yeah, Fauci. But he's not alone. He's just the pimple. He's the high point. He's, well, maybe pimple, boil. The government lies to us. So Trump, when he could have shut everything down, he said 2 weeks to slow the spread, but then he said the individual states need to figure out what's right for them. And the authoritarians, cultural Marxists, Democrats, said, oh, no, you can't do it that way. There can't be freedom. We need to tell people what to do. Well, the good news is I live in California, and Lord Gavin, the governor of California, went, I know what to, I'll tell him what to do. And we were shut down longer than any other state. Not just businesses, though, thank goodness, I'm currently sitting in the city of Clovis, and most of our city council, aside from current Mayor Ashbrook, voted to reopen. And we found one of the fingers on our hands, and we extended them to Lord Gavin. And we had a little bit of freedom here. Yeah. We had a little bit of freedom here. In the land of the free, we managed to reclaim our rights. Let's take a look at what Joe Biden did. As soon as he became Lord and Emperor, he went, well, everybody's got to get vaxxed. Doesn't matter that we absolutely had even our own CDC that said, no, kids are really not vulnerable. And this is it's still on an emergency use authorization. The vaccine makers, they have no liability. Zero. Because our government exempted them because it was authorized with an emergency authorization. So kids aren't vulnerable. Why would they need to get the vaccine? Especially when it came out that if you get the vaccine, you can still spread it. You can still get it. So the argument fell apart, yet Joe went, if you're a federal employee, you got to get the vaccine. So immediately he went to an authoritarian position, like a dictator, like the ruler of a fascist party. Next thing he did, well, if you work for the government and you're a large contractor or you're a large business, you have to get it because I said so. And Americans largely took it. Shame on you. And then he went, I'm going to tell our military they have to get this experimental vaccine that we have no idea whether it will really work. Trifecta of evil, of incompetence. That's what Joe chose to do. Here in California, Governor Newsom decided that you couldn't go to church, couldn't go to a bar, but boy, you could still get your alcohol. You couldn't go to a bar. You couldn't go to church. Okay, those make sense. Maybe for a short period of time when we didn't know, 2 weeks to slow the spread. But this went months and months and months and months and months and months, longer than any other state beyond that. But you could go to a strip club because, you got to protect your jollies. That's the type of man that Gavin Newsom is. Everybody that's not in California needs to learn that they're probably going to try to insert Lord Gavin in for Gibber and Joe. That is a real possibility. Michelle Obama might be another one, but Gavin is in the running to be inserted in place of Joe because nobody wants Kamala Harris or Kamala. And I've heard her pronounce it both ways, so I'm not trying to be racist by getting her name wrong. I've heard her say it both ways. I don't know what it is. It's one of those. Vice President Harris. Gavin also shut our schools down longer than anybody else. California was already towards the bottom in schools. When he had that debate with DeSantis, the governor and governor debate, he lied about that. California is not doing that terrible when you look at how our indoctrination centers, colleges, how they do. They don't do too bad. But if we're looking at elementary and high school, you'll be hard-pressed to find any organization that rates California higher than 38th and potentially as low as 48th. Well, we've got more opportunity here. We've got a high-tech sector. We've got an agricultural industry that is amazing. We've got all kinds of industry, though, again, the Democrats are doing everything they can to destroy the ag industry. But we've got all these advantages. We've got the best weather. We've got beautiful scenery. We've got natural resources just all over, an abundance of them. And somehow, we've got the worst education. Thank you, Gavin Newsom. We've got 60% of the country's homelessness, but only about 35 or 40% of the population. Thank you, Gavin. By the way, he said he was going to fix it. I would contend that his idea of fixing it is that there's a homeless person in every yard. I think he wants to make us all homeless so that he will be proportionally richer because he gets to live in a gated community and doesn't have to deal with the homeless. He just gets to give lip service. Now, by the way, Gavin very successfully, in an extremely short period of time, in 2 weeks, cleared up a whole big section of San Francisco. Now, he's the former mayor of San Francisco. Never did do a thing to help crime or homelessness in San Francisco when he was there. But as governor, for his potentially boss, because if he's a communist, wouldn't she be a bigger communist than him? The dictator, communist leader of China. Well, When G was coming to town, San Francisco got cleaned up. All the homeless magically disappeared. A problem that they couldn't fix before, but they cleaned it right up. So they couldn't do it for the residents, but they did it for a dictator. And then they lined the streets with Chinese communist flags, not American flags. This should tell you again who Gavin Newsom is. He can't be trusted. He's a pretty boy, kind of a pretty boy. He looks a bit like Butthead from Beavis and Butthead. And if you don't know what I mean, you really should look it up. It is just scary. Now, he's a smoother talker than Beavis and Butthead. He's a smoother talker than most people. But the scary part is not just that he looks like Butthead, but he acts like Butthead. And he can lie without flinching. In that debate with Governor DeSantis, Gavin Newsom told some big whoppers, and his body language didn't change whatsoever. I went back and played some of those several times. He had to have known he was lying, because I don't actually believe he's stupid. I just think he's amoral, meaning without morals. If we have somebody that can lie without flinching, that essentially is willing to believe their own BS so much in the moment, regardless of facts or reality, if that becomes the leader of our country, where are we at? Kind of scary. So, getting back to what did Biden do during COVID? He used the FBI in collusion. He had the FBI actually paying Twitter, telling Twitter, you can't post this. No, you need to remove this. I'm sure, 100% sure the same thing happened with Facebook, but those books haven't been opened. That can of worms hasn't been opened. So we know they did that on what you could post about the 2020 election. I know that they did that when there was decisions on what you could post on COVID. They did that about the Hunter Biden laptop. I'd love to know those 51 people in the intelligence community that said, "Oh yeah, we're sure this is Russian disinformation." Keep in mind, these are people with security clearances that know more. How many of those people are on the CIA payroll? Clearly, they weren't concerned with doing the right thing. Now, maybe a few of them got duped, but I would have to bet with their high-level intelligence clearances, because the FBI knew about the Hunter laptop months and months and months and months and months, something like almost a year before that broke in the Washington Post, just before the election. Keep in mind, a huge number of people said if they'd known about all this, they wouldn't have voted for Joe. So, that's kind of a fascist move. You used the power of the government to push private companies that are essentially, in a way, Twitter and Facebook and social media, they're kind of media organizations. They're ways that people move around information. It's a non-traditional way, but it's still a way they move around information. They share ideas. Now, Joe Biden has said that the MAGA movement is so dangerous that we've never seen a threat like this. They're a greater threat to our democracy than everything else. Now, I don't see it. Because you're telling me that, because, let's see, MAGA movement, you're patriotic. You tend to be populist, meaning you want to take care of the working people. I've never heard a MAGA person advocate for more government. I always hear them talk about individual liberty. That the foundation of our liberty is defined by the individual. They tend to believe in God. don't see what's so scary. Unless your goal is to be a fascist or communist type dictator. Doesn't really matter which one. Really, truly doesn't. The John Birch Society has an interesting way to look at the political spectrum. On one side, you've got total chaos, the anarchists. And think of this as a straight line. On the other side, you've got all of these different authoritarian forms of government that are about controlling people and not giving them choices and freedom. So, straight line. In the middle, you've got democracies, and in the sweet spot, you've got a representative republic. Now, the problem with true democracies is that mob rule can happen, that wiser heads and wisdom isn't consulted. We're going to go ahead and take our final break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. So when we come back, we're going to start with Forgiato. Let's go ahead and come back.
That's how I feel when parents have been overruled. Indoctrinated kids is better to be homeschooled. Just a bunch of pedophiles, how they get this stuff approved? Whooping son and Mega Joy, man, we need a different view. Education in our nation should be school choice. Let the girls be the girls, boys be the boys. On the Blake Shelton to the game, I was be the voice of the people. Get to signing off like a desert eagle. Heard you coming after me, guess I'm going Johnny Depp. I just smile while you lie, let the Lord be my rep. I keep swimming through the swamp like I'm Black Michael Phelps. Been about the Constitution since the day I left from Mel's, boy. Disrespect the team, I'ma check it. Candace Owens, I'ma pull up to your crib while I'm pregnant. It's a sham, everybody need the flex. At 80 million votes impossible, no matter how you stretch it. Oh, gang.
They already hate us, so let's make them matter. Ooh, they say we extreme, yeah, I hear the chatter. I pick Christ first and the rest don't matter. 2 a.m. we run up on my back, so go on no dramatic. It's a big mega party, we live.
This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. That was Bryson Gray and a guy named Topher. There's two other guys that are part of this song, but I don't want to play the whole song. I want to give you a flavor of how culture's shifting. So, song's named Ultra Maga. I love the idea that he starts off with, we're not going to make them happy anyway. We might as well make them matter. I think we need to live that. The left is not going to agree with us. The left is going to label us. And that's anybody that's conservative. Because you could check every box that the left had, but if you had conservative opinions, you're part of the problem. Because it's not really about race. Even though they call us racist, it's about power and a worldview. Now, I do believe there's hope. But we have to stop the left from tearing down walls. Now, that might be physical walls. Like a wall on the southern border could very much help regulate things. Or that could be metaphorical walls. They want to tear down the family. And they'd say, oh, no, I don't. Really? What's happening in schools? You don't teach civics. There is no mention of a larger system, a belief system that might be bigger than government, like God. And it doesn't even have to be a Christian God, though I'm absolutely a Christian. Every one of the great religions of the world has a morality. And that morality is being crushed by the secular humanism, by the idea that there's no God. Oh, there's government in place. Or maybe you're more of a climate change worshiper, or maybe you're more of a trans worshiper. But yeah, they've done that to education. We need to speak up. Now, I had a great thought. What if you were to go to a Constitution class You say, oh, well, I don't have time. I can't get there. You drive 10 minutes a day. You could listen to the Hillsdale College online course on the Constitution. You could also listen to the John Birch Society. The Constitutionalist Solution is the solution. Both are multi-part series. They're both free. Maybe you could listen to those in the car with your kid while you drive them to school. We have a responsibility, but we also have an opportunity. Freedom's not gone. I spent a lot of time complaining about the problems, but freedom's not gone. I couldn't say what I'm saying on the radio because it doesn't agree with the established narrative of those in power, whether we're talking my governor, Lord Gavin, or Gibberin' Joe Brandon. I can still say it, but we have to find our voice. We have to get active. So the idea of tearing down walls. Yeah. Look what they're doing in schools. Where else? How else are they destroying the family? Oh, well, let's see. Why trans? Because if you can't define what a man or a woman is, all of a sudden, one of our guide rails in society is gone. That's why so many of those judicial nominees that came before the Senate refused and pretended like they didn't know what a woman was because they weren't a biologist. Come on, folks. Kids have this one figured out when they're tiny. But adults can't figure it out? That's why I say the left has lost its mind, because it is so divorced from reality. Now, that's scary, but at the same time, if they're divorced from reality, if there's no common sense, if they're not willing to even admit basics like men and women are different, and you can't just switch wherever, you might sleep with whoever, not my choice, but you might sleep with whoever, but you can't actually change the fact that biologically, no matter what surgery or chemicals, you're going to be whichever one you were born. So this is an opportunity. Talk to people. We're Americans. We have people rushing across this border because they want part of our opportunity. At least I think that's most of the people that are coming here, both legally, certainly, and I would even venture most of the people that are sneaking across our border the wrong way still want a better life. They still want the opportunities that we have. They want to see our blessings. Well, guess what? We still have those blessings. Embrace them, because if we don't, the alternative is more control by the government, less choices. You think there won't be another pandemic? Next time, Lord Gavin, or whoever, whatever politician, are they going to protect your freedom? Or are they going to go, ooh, this is our chance, just like Lord Gavin did. And he said, this is our chance to have a more progressive type of capitalism at the beginning of COVID. That's how he saw it. Not, oh, I need to protect the people's health, but I need to push progressivism, because he's just dishonest. Folks, I thank you for this time. I hope that you have a Merry Christmas, or whatever other holiday, but for me, it's Merry Christmas. So spend some time with your family. Enjoy the blessings in life. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town.